TSN's Motoring 95 is brought to you by Quaker State. Quaker State, the intelligent oil for longer engine life. And Midas, the way it should be.
If the automotive world created a time capsule to record the events of the 20th century, I would think that 1982 would rank up near the top, because that was the year that Chrysler gave the world the minivan. Well, of course, all the other manufacturers very quickly jumped on the bandwagon, with the exception of one, Honda. Well, you know what they say, better late than never, and now Honda has its own minivan called the Odyssey. Now the question is there really any more room left for another minivan? Honda obviously believes there is. In fact, they're so confident about the Odyssey that they have invited owners of competitive minivans down here to Southern California to tell Honda what they like and maybe don't like about the new Odyssey.
We were looking at how to get the message out about our minivan, as this is the first time we've been in the market. How could we successfully convey to people that this van does do everything that we think it does for the consumer? So what we've done is we've approached some actual consumers of minivan, competitive vans. They've been invited to California to give us their honest, unbiased opinion of how they think this van fits in with the needs and wants that they were looking for.
The event was called the Honda Odyssey Adventure and was organized by Car Guide magazine. 6 minivan families were randomly selected and invited to California. Their mission, test drive the Odyssey.
Honda, of course, is launching into a whole new segment of the market that they're not familiar with. It's a foreign territory. They're going to have to be appealing to people who own Chrysler minivans and Previas and so on. So we thought, what better way to find out if they really, hit the nail on the head than to bring a bunch of those people together and let them do an evaluation.
My dear Lucie came to me and said, David, I was asked if we would like to go to California to test the Honda Odyssey. And of course, with my legal mind, I said, yes, of course, Luce. How many condominiums do we have to buy? I've heard this story before. You go to Mexico, you look at the real estate, they bill you if you don't buy. Would you please check this out a little more?
I said, this is unbelievable, and whoa, what's the catch? What do you want from me? How much is it going to cost me? No way.
It turned out to be something which was actually really above board, believe it or not.
You want to have a controlled reaction. You want to be able to do a nice squeeze on the brake pedals. So you're actually demonstrating very good driving skill in actually not activating the ABS. My emphasis will be, making, first of all, sure that people's seating position is correct, that they're driving in a position of control, and emphasizing proper use of the steering wheel to maneuver through the exercises, good use of the brake pedal to demonstrate what does happen in a panic, for example, when you pound the pedal instead of squeezing smoothly on the pedal, that type of thing. So yes, I think people will benefit from the experience. I hope so.
We've owned 2 vans. We've owned a Caravan, and we now own a Previa. And the way I choose them is I read consumer reports, because I know nothing about them myself. And we test drive them. And we chose the Caravan in 1988, and in 92 we bought a Previa. And what we're looking for probably more than anything is cargo space, lots of room, and just the overall driving performance of the vehicle. I mean, until today, I didn't know what ABS brakes were, for example. I'm fairly illiterate when it comes to motor vehicles.
How did that feel?
Well, not very good. It didn't move at all.
Yeah, as soon as you did the panic brake, because there was no anti-lock braking system, the wheels locked, and even though you were putting in all that steering, nothing happened. You still continued in a straight line.
Scary. Yeah. I was as scared as I was sitting in the passenger seat with her.
Oh, oh, that's not nice. Anyway, switch over.
When you do your evaluations tomorrow, we want you to be absolutely frank and candid. Well, I think their opinions are going to be extremely interesting. We found in the past that people have some pretty astute comments to make about vehicles, and yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting.
Had a great day today, and went up through these very sinuous mountain passes in which we were able to test this car to its limit. And I note that I don't say test the van to its limits, because in my view it's somewhere between a van and a car, and perhaps more towards a car than a van.
It's very stable, very responsive. You know, it responds well, very pleasant. My only criticism, personally, in terms of me as a buyer, is that I need more luggage space. But other than that, I love the car. I have really no complaints.
I miss that armrest on my left arm as a passenger. So, but I drive our van a lot, so it would be okay to drive it, because you do have an armrest on your right side. You know, we do 6 12-hour drives in a day, and it looks comfortable. My back is fine. I have back problems, and the seat was fine.
Okay, go have another go. Okay.
Well, there's always a certain sense of relief when you finish a program like this, because the vehicles all came back without dents. We didn't lose anybody, and I think everyone had not only an interesting and fun time, but I think they learned a great deal, not only just about the Odyssey, but they learned some things about things like ABS and the way vehicles are constructed today, and I think they've got a great deal out of the whole process. So have we. It'll be appearing in the March issue of Car Guide magazine, so that means I'm going to have to be working very early tomorrow morning to get this put together. But it'll be good fun doing that too.
Test Drive with Graham Fletcher.
This week on Test Drive, we're in England to put Land Rover's latest through its paces. This is the all-new Range Rover, a vehicle that's been reworked from the road wheels up. How extensive is the rework? Well, you'll find less than 1% of the old vehicle in the new.
In 1970, Land Rover released the first Range Rover, a vehicle destined to take its place in history. To date, it is still the only automobile to be exhibited in the Louvre in Paris. Can this edition preserve Range Rover's reputation as the Rolls-Royce of the off-road brigade? One thing's for sure, they've given it more than the good old college try. The first thing that strikes you is the new shape. While the look represents only a subtle departure from its predecessor, the more rounded profile and the lack of a gutter around the roofline make this new edition look smaller and a lot less bulky. In reality, though, the 95 model is longer, wider, taller, heavier, and offers 50% more luggage space. The result is more comfort, especially for those in the rear, and a degree of vehicle control that was totally lacking in the old version. Beneath the sheet metal is where the most significant changes have taken place. The stiffer body and modified electronic air suspension improve the on-road feel and predictability without sacrificing anything in the way of this vehicle's legendary off-road capability. The air suspension, complete with 5 different height settings, has been improved immensely. The stiffer spring rates, greater roll resistance, improved steering response, and built-in passive rear-wheel steering combine to give this tall vehicle a very poised feel. Even when pushed hard, the Range Rover retains a degree of composure that belies its multi-purpose design. The 4-litre V8 engine has been reworked to provide more power, better fuel economy and smoother performance. For 95, power is rated at 190 horsepower and 236 pounds-feet of torque. Off the line, performance is on the sluggish side but builds strongly through the mid-range. For the record, the Range Rover accomplishes the 0 to 100k dash in a tick under 11 seconds. Mated to this engine is a full-time 4-wheel drive system that offers the ultimate in traction. A neat new H-gate allows a single lever to control both the automatic transmission and the transfer case. The left side of the H is a regular shifter. To engage 4 low, you simply select neutral, slide the lever across the H, and you now have full access to the low-range gears. To say that this is a user-friendly design is an understatement. This powertrain combination works wonders regardless if you're going shopping in Harrods or off-road to the cottage, and get into the backwoods in low range and this puppy is unstoppable. Even if you're dumb enough to get high-centered, the adjustable suspension comes to the rescue.
Any review of the new Range Rover would not be complete without mentioning the splendid new interior. Every conceivable luxury item known to man is present, ranging from the 10-way power front seats through to the top-notch audio equipment. The item that impresses, though, is the ergonomics. They are vastly better, and at long last all the switchgear now offers a uniform tactile feel. On the safety front, the Range Rover again hits the bullseye. Standard items include anti-lock brakes, a sophisticated traction control system that works hand in hand with the all-wheel drive, and dual airbags.
Well, that's it for this week's test drive. I think it's safe to say this new Range Rover is going to be a huge hit. They've improved the on-road performance without sacrificing the off-road capability. On that note, I'll hand you back to Brad and the gang while I'm off down to the Rubber-Dub-Dub for a pig's ear. Don't worry, Kenzie's driving. It's time to update our long-term Saab. Now, we've discovered a glaring omission on this particular vehicle. It's become an industry standard that in order to start a car with a manual transmission, you must put your foot on the clutch. If you don't, nothing happens. Well, on this particular car, it doesn't matter whether you've got your foot on or off the clutch. The car will start. Now, what makes this particularly onerous is the fact that you cannot get the ignition key out without putting the vehicle in reverse. Now, if you happen to start the car without putting your foot on the clutch, the consequences could be more than dire.
This week on Motoring 95, I want to show you the operation and replacement of the turn signal switch, which is inside the steering column of your car. Now, before we go any further, I think it's important to mention that, in fact, most problems with the turn signal system are related to bulb failures. So you're working out at the corners of the car replacing bulbs, or with the bimetal flasher unit, which is usually located either plugged into the fuse panel or just behind the dash of the car. So make sure before you go any further that you've checked these items, because these are cheap, simple fixes. What I'm about to show you here with the turn signal switch inside the steering column is a little bit more expensive. Okay, I've already removed 2 of the 3 screws that hold the horn rim in place. I'm going to take the 3rd one off, and then we can pop the horn rim off. There's a quick turn connector here for the horn grounding wire, and there's the horn contact assembly. I'll set it aside. Now, a little bit farther in, you can see a safety clip right here that prevents the steering wheel nut, retaining nut, from ever completely disengaging from the shaft. That's a safety feature. And we take that clip off first, and then we can remove that 7/8 nut that secures the steering wheel to the steering shaft. Now, the steering wheel is locked onto a taper, so we need a puller to get it off. And the puller threads into a couple of holes that are provided in the steering wheel. We're going to thread these 2 bolts in and attach the puller. Now, you can also see in this shot pretty easily the steel superstructure of the steering wheel. That's what gives your steering wheel its strength, and it's quite visible in this particular car. Now, after we get the puller installed, we can turn it on, turn the lead screw in a little bit, and that's going to remove the steering wheel. It's going to force it off that taper on the steering shaft. It's also splined onto that shaft, but the taper is the reason we have to use the puller to unlock that taper, and there's how easily the steering wheel comes off. I can set it aside. Now, the next step is removing the lock plate. In order to speed things up, I've already partially released this lock plate using the lock plate remover, and this tool is just basically forcing down the steering wheel lock plate against a heavy spring so that I can dig out this little snap ring. Now, I've already dug it out. It takes a minute or 2 sometimes to dig this little critter out. It's pretty pesky. It's got quite a hold on there. Now, there's the lock plate and all the sections where it can lock into the steering column, and you can see the contact ring or slip ring for the horn rim as well. Now, there's the turn signal switch, the part that we're actually talking about. It's this white plastic unit right in here. It's held into the steering column with 3 screws, and you can see how it's actuated left and right by the turn signal lever. There's a little black link over here connecting the lever to the plastic signal switch. Here's a couple of interesting parts right here. These little springs that are tucked in on either side of the shaft here. Those are the springs that cancel your turn signal switch after you round a corner. It should automatically bump itself off. Now, if you have to manually release the turn signal switch after you round a corner in order to cancel it, one of these 2 springs is broken. And those are about 80 or 90 cents. You can buy those as a separate part for many cars. And they're pretty easy to replace. You've only got to get the steering wheel and the lock plate off. In other words, to the point where I've got it right now. What I've done here, I've taken my brand new turn signal switch and I've plugged it in down to the base of the steering column here so it can actually function. There you can see the signal switch. There's 3 screws that hold it into the steering column, so the base is held tight, and the top part of the switch swings left and right, and that right now I've got my left turn signal on. That's what I was missing on this defective switch. I had no left turn signal. I can swing it over and get right turn signal back to the center position. There's my 4-way flasher function. Pressing that in gives me the 4-way flasher. And the horn is also routed up through the turn signal switch as well. And when I ground that contact, I get the horn. Now this little turn signal switch is about $45 for this particular car and an hour to an hour and a half labor. But if your car has more accessories like telescopic steering column, some other accessory loads as well, this part could be more expensive and there could be more labor involved. In any case, as I mentioned earlier, make sure before you get into this stage that you've properly checked the bulbs, sockets, turn signal, flasher, etc. before you get into a major repair like this. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 95.
Truth is, your game's not the only in town. You started the market. You've made that quite clear. But others have followed. There's more every year, though they've never quite managed to figure it out. When you look at domestics, a couple stand out.
Well, do you mind if we continue here?
We're on a very tight schedule, and we're talking about minivans, and I'm not sure that you'd understand.
Hey, let me tell you, my pond is close to the highway. I've seen everything on wheels. In fact, I've lost my share of friends and relatives, try to jump to the other side, only to become roadkill. Hey, no hard feelings. We give you guys warts in return.
This was the scene at this year's North American Auto Show in Detroit, as Chrysler stole the show once again with the debut of their new minivans.
We're moving the target. We're jumping ahead of the competition. We're jumping ahead of the competition. We're jumping ahead.
Hey, I got it! Leapfrog!
Chrysler Chairman Bob Eaton and President Bob Lutz savored their moment in the spotlight, but admit the past still haunts them.
I think all of us at Chrysler take great pride in the recognition we're getting and the acceptance that our products are enjoying, and frankly also the accolades that we're getting as a management team. But at the same time, it fills us with worry and apprehension because we know from experience, and it's not just us, it's everybody's experience. The most dangerous thing is to start believing the press clippings and to start relaxing. And we knew that we were an excellent company and an excellent management team when we had our back to the wall. And somehow we've got to preserve that back to the wall mentality even though we're doing so much better.
While the world awaits the Bmw Roadster, Mercedes-Benz is stirring up excitement with its own roadster named the SLK, whose inspiration came from the classic 190 SL from the 60s.
Well, it is following the history of the 190 SL, which stands, German translation, for schnell and leicht, S and L, and K was added to mean short, kurz in German. And we would like to pick up this great idea of a sporty roadster and put it into a new design. And the result of that is our new SLK here on the show. And it will go on production mid of '96. And the response so far is exceptional. So we had a great echo from customers as also from the medias here. And we are very lucky about that. And we hope that we will continue with this momentum till the time is coming for sale.
A Midas tip of the week concerns collapsed tailpipes. In most cases, your vehicle's exhaust system is positioned to clear average obstacles, but the wintertime can be a whole different story. Piles of snow like this can become frozen and as hard as a rock after a few freeze-thaw cycles. And just backing your vehicle in slowly is all it takes to squash those tailpipes up in this fashion. You can see on this vehicle, one is completely crushed flat, the other one's down to about 50% capacity. In any case, that'll severely restrict the engine's performance. It can overheat other critical components of the exhaust system, and it could even damage the engine's exhaust valves if it's left unchecked for long enough. If the tailpipe was in good shape to start with, there's a good chance it can even be straightened and saved. If not, you may have to replace it to cure that situation. That's your Midas tip of the week.
Does your minivan have a fishing position for the rear seat? More on the Honda Odyssey next on Kenzie's Corner.
Kenzie's Corner with Jim Kenzie.
This is the new Honda, don't call it a minivan, Odyssey. Now some people are calling this the Oddity because it doesn't look like a conventional minivan. To me it looks like the old Mitsubishi Space Wagon that was sold in Canada as a Dodge or Plymouth Colt. It's got the 4 hinged doors, a very flexible interior. In fact, it's more a tall station wagon than it is a minivan. Now a lot of minivan prospects are going to take one look at this thing and dismiss it outright because they say it's too small. All I can suggest is get in this thing. There's more room in there than you might think. Some people question the fact that there's only a 4-cylinder engine. Well, it is a Honda motor. It runs pretty smoothly and it provides not bad performance. A V6 would be nice, but don't turn it down until you get a chance to drive it. But some people say, why is Honda taking so long to come out with a minivan? And why did they pick this year when Chrysler's got a brand new minivan that's stealing all the thunder? Well, frankly, Honda has no intention of going after the Chrysler market. They expect Accord buyers who want something just a little bit more spacious to stay in the Honda family rather than defect to Chrysler. If Honda can sell 3,000 of these things this year, they'll be very happy. I'm Jim Kenzie.
Well, that's it from Southern California. Now make sure you join us next week because among other things, Graham Fletcher will go behind the wheel of the brand new Honda Odyssey on test drive, and we'll see what he thinks about this newest addition to the minivan market. That's it for now. We'll see you next week as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
TSN's Motoring 95 has been brought to you by Quaker State. Quaker State, the intelligent oil for longer engine life. And Midas, the way it should be.
Motoring 95 is proud to introduce the first in a series of comprehensive test drive videos with an exclusive comparison of the 7 most popular minivans in North America. Graham Fletcher evaluates performance, versatility, and safety. Bill Gardner examines each van, top to bottom, front to back, and under the hood. Jim Kenzie covers showroom savvy, the demonstrator, buying or leasing, options, and much more. We'll also compare fuel economy, safety features, warranties, replacing parts, and recall history. For your copy of this exclusive comparison video, send check or money order to Motoring 95, P.O. Box 65213, Toronto, Ontario, M4K3Z2, or call 1-800-340-7607. 416 and 905 area codes, call 416-462-1504.